but anyway, but yeah, we're live. We're recording. We're up, Mike.
Sweet.
Thanks for being here, though. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to this one. This is gonna be a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
So we're, just so the audience kind of catches up with us, Mike came on here and I didn't know you were a CrossFit guy. And now you got my curiosity, and now I'm ready to start taking that dive and go down this rabbit hole. And, I told you my story. I mean, it was 10 years and I started competing. I just do like local competitions, some fundraising competitions. I do the open. I've been doing the open ever since I started. But yeah, I mean, what about you? So what about you? Said you compete and you said, yeah, what's going on with that?
Yeah, so I was a collegiate athlete. I played hockey, and I was always a gym guy training for hockey. And when my career ended, there's this weird transition. You're an athlete, now you're not, and you're thrown into corporate life, and you're like trying to find an identity. And a friend of mine was running a program for Try CrossFit. This was back in like 2009.
Okay.
So like early days CrossFit, and they weren't getting attendance. So he's like, man, can you help me out and come to this class?
Sure.
And I was like, sure, man. I'm like a Globo Gym bodybuilding type guy, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I walked in and like, I was able to scratch that itch. And like, it's, you can be an athlete no matter your age. And like, I love the student athlete lifestyle. You do work and then you kind of get to be an athlete as well and balance both. And being a CrossFit athlete, I say this to my friends and everyone does, is like, I'm going to be an athlete till I die. Like, I'm never going to stop being a student athlete. Like, I love the lifestyle and CrossFit allows me to do that. So yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's one of the things that led me to it. And, well, yeah, that's what basically led me to it. But I was like you, I was a very just kind of bodybuilding, or not even a bodybuilder, but I thought I was, right? I was very glad
Yeah.
would go get back in the day, like college, we would go on bodybuilding.com and get workouts and just like push pull stuff. And so anyway, I thought I was mainly just working out just to get the chicks, right? That was mainly my goal. But when I started my job here at the university, I was working out on campus and I was still doing just the basic bro lifts and the meathead stuff. And, I saw some people kind of over in the other side of the gym and they were doing, like CrossFit. And I was like, what the hell they got going on? And I actually met one of the guys that was doing it later on. And, I was asking him about it. He's like, yeah, it's CrossFit, man. I was like, what the hell's CrossFit? And this was probably 2012, 2013, which I don't know. I can't remember when CrossFit started, but it was kind of close to what you said, I guess, or maybe even before.
Yeah.
But I guess this was when it started getting some heat, in the early games and stuff. And which, back then, if you were like cleaning and snatching like 225, you were a big dog, right?
Yeah. Now it's table stake. I mean, I just did a master's comp, and like masters, which is age 35 to 39, like guys are snatching like 300 pounds. And I was like, that's not me. Like, I just don't, I don't have that. And it's just, it's, humbling. It's amazing and frustrating with how the sport has evolved, but it's so cool. When I started doing CrossFit, there was and I'm in Toronto, and there was one of the coaches at the gym actually made the games. And I think because of that experience, following along and watching them along, like really got me excited about the competing aspect and just, being able to do something. And the thing that's great about CrossFit is there's always something, right? Like you're never done. There's always capacity that can be built. You can be stronger, you can be more proficient somewhere. So every day it's that 1% better. And I find it translates to life, to business, to everything, where it's like, you're never done. You're always on the path to trying to get better. And if you compare yourself, like for me, if I compare myself to the guys that are snatching 300 pounds and think that I could do that, I'm not running my race. I'm never going to be that. But if I put that as the benchmark, then I'm going to be disappointed. So similar to life and business, it's like you're in your own race. And as long as you're worried about controlling what you can control and get 1% better. So like, I definitely see like CrossFit's a like foundation to just my life, my business, my relationships, everything.
Yeah, for sure. It's taught me a whole lot with, I guess, just daily life in general. And, and as you probably know, one thing that it has taught me, comparison is a thief of joy. And that's from Joe Rogan. And he didn't say that, but I used to hear him say it all the time. But, like you said, when I first started with CrossFit, I was all in. I went and got certified. I was watching YouTube videos all day long, watching the games. I was studying. Like I was all about it. And I was, probably my late 20s when I started. And I'm going to the games, which that's what I kept thinking, and I was really excited about it. And I still am excited about it, but it got to a point where that, okay, comparing myself to these other, who was, Ben Smith and Rich, obviously, and Matt Frazier, and even the girls out there too, that was like, okay, well, maybe, they're training multiple times a day. I'm only training a handful, once or twice a day. If that, I mean, this may be not be in the cards for me right now. So let me just worry about what I'm getting out of this.
Mhm.
And it changed my mindset, like you said, not just along with how CrossFit and just, me attacking daily life or attacking workouts and stuff, but when I attack daily life, as far as, somebody cuts me off in traffic, or I got to go walk from the other end of the parking lot to the store. It's like, there's no big deal. I've done worse things here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that mindset is, when you get into that mindset, it's almost makes you a dangerous man. Maybe that's a bad word to say, but that's what I think of myself as. It's like, hey, shit's not a big deal, man. Let's just do this. Let's get after it.
Yeah, I think it was, I remember early days, there was a workout and like, it was like 100 burpees for time. And you're sitting there and you're just like, nope, like this is like, before you're just like, this is terrible. I'm never going to finish this. I'm not going to get going. And 3, 2, 1, and then you start. And, you just have that self-talk throughout. And before you know it, you could see the finish line.
Yes.
And like, when you do enough of these workouts, you realize like they all suck. But when you see something, all you say to yourself is, just get started. It's not going to be as bad as you think. Just get started. And in life and business is the same thing. You have this, task ahead of you that seems like there is no way I can do this. But what we've learned is we'll just get started and see what happens. And more oftentimes than not, as soon as you start doing it, you realize it's not as bad as you think, and you're already moving. So you just keep moving and just keep pushing through it. So it's huge. I mean, that's functional fitness. They talk about that in terms of the physicality of what it brings, but I think it's more mental than anything else in terms of how it prepares you to handle all the stresses of life.
Yeah. And not only that, though, I mean, when you're doing it within a class, I worked out with a couple of police officers, and just, there was some firefighters in our classes at one point, and just, throwing yourself into the fire with those guys is just, it builds that camaraderie. Even though everyone's giving their best, you're throwing down. And even though I'm not doing the same type of work on the outside of the gym like they are, putting their life on the line every day in and day out, but it makes me feel better that, okay, I'm pushing myself along with these bros right here, just getting after it. And just, you build that cool friendship and camaraderie. And, and another point to that when I first started training, there was another guy in the gym, and we were pretty close to the same age, and, we didn't know each other, but we just kind of started building a friendship and started training together. And, a couple of years ago, I was a groomsman in his wedding. Never would have thought that would happen. So I've met some of the best people in my life right now just through CrossFit. And that's part of also what keeps me coming back, not only just to work out, but just the social aspect of it, I guess, too. So,
and you summed it up. Like, people always say it's the community, but I think you did a great job of actually saying what that means to you, which I think is great. It's not speaking in buzzwords and like, yeah, it's great, it's community, but like, that's what it shows up as. It's being a groomsman at a wedding. And it's, looking forward to going and see your friends to suffer together, to do something that sounds terrible, but like, you're looking forward to it because you're going to do it with people that you enjoy hanging out with. And like, that's community. And like, that's powerful. And I think, it's really cool seeing that. And you can drop into any CrossFit gym around the world and you have that sense of community, which is so cool. Like, I was down in Miami a few weeks ago and I went to a gym and I felt so comfortable. Like, immediately I walked in and you're like, I know this, I know these people, like, we all speak the same language in terms of fit and we all get it. So like, you immediately make friends and you kind of become part of that community, which is great. It's so unique.
Yeah. It's, when I first started, CrossFit had some bad, what am I looking for? Bad terms with it. People used to say that it's cult-like and that you'll get hurt doing it. And I was like, cult-like, what is that supposed to mean? I mean, just because I work out, I'm in a cult. I mean, well, you can say that with anything. But and to your point though, that there is, I guess, in the first days of CrossFit, there were bad gyms. There probably still are bad gyms, but it's just like anything else in life. There's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good policemen, there's bad policemen. And it's just a matter of what type of experience you get and what coaches you see and stuff like that. But that's just daily life. But it's that, like, there's bad people is what kind of gave it a bad name. And I've dropped into a couple different boxes, and I'm just like you. I felt welcome. And, I don't think I've been to a gym yet that's not been welcoming to me at all. I mean, I've been to even where gyms host a competition or show. I mean, even though I don't know what their daily operations are like, but just being in the competition setting, like all the head coaches and people putting on are just so nice. And there's like, you know, and nobody cares like your level of fitness or anything. They're just like, hey man, great, glad you're here, man. Let's get after it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think like I think there's fear in generalizing anything, right? And like if
Sure.
you look hard enough, you can find data or evidence to support a theory. And it's you generalize it all great or all bad one way or the other, and you're wrong either way, right? Because it all depends, right? It really does. But I think the positives in this, I mean, if you think about, if you strip it down, it's like the core is everybody's going there to physically try to get better in some capacity. And like, that's a hard thing to argue that why that's bad, of people getting together to try to get healthier, right? Like it's a really hard thing to say that that's a bad thing.
Yeah. No, that's a lot of the thing that another bad stigmatism. I don't know what word I'm looking for is, but when people think of CrossFit and you know how you and I are talking about competing and stuff, and they're like, well, I can never do that. And so, well, it's not about that. I don't care if you compete or not. And that if you just want to get healthier, I mean, I'm 36 years old. I know you said you're in a master's division too, and I'm in one of the best shape of my life, honestly. And, you know, I feel stronger. I feel fit. You know, I feel like I feel good all the time rather than just feeling, you know, bad all the time just because, but I'm conscious of what I'm putting in my body and what I'm doing and all that stuff. But I guess where people say that, I've heard people tell me that, oh, well, I got to get in shape before I do CrossFit. I don't really make sense. You know, just come do it, you know, and just do your own thing and like, don't compare yourself to others. And if you look at it as just, hey, I just want to work out, feel better, you know, and when I get older, extend my life for X amount of years. And just when I'm 80, I don't feel terrible. Right. So
Yeah.
I tell people.
I think like the point you just said about like I got to be in shape to go and do something is on a bigger scale. It's everybody thinks, you know, you need confidence first before you take on a challenging task, and it's like you get confident by taking on a challenging task. Like you're getting this reversed, right? Like it's not about gaining the confidence and now you can go do risky things. It's like by taking a chance and doing something, you're going to gain confidence through that experience. And it's the same when we talk about health and fitness. It's like, you don't have to get in shape to go and do something hard. Doing something hard is going to get you in shape. That's the point. And that's how you build confidence, is by doing that and surprising yourself and coming out the other side of that and just being proud of you and your effort and what you've put in. Like that's the process. It's not about the end result. Nobody cares at the end of the day who wins or what does this. Like it's just you want to be proud of what you're doing for yourself, and if you can do that, you're already winning.
Yeah, we have a couple people. Well, I'm not going to say anything other than there's people out there that I'll just say that are rep shavers, and people know it. We get it, we see it, whatever. But it's just like, you know, I would give you more respect if you just did the full workout entirely and this. And I get you wanting to win. This is a competitive edge, but we all know what's going on. But you're not doing anything to help yourself with that, and that I always feel like it's just going to come back and bite people in the ass when they're doing that, and just that. And it also makes me, you know, we talk about confidence and stuff. It's like, you know, are you just trying to be the best at just this one gym? I mean, who cares? No one really cares who wins the workout or not. But if that makes you feel good, I guess that's okay. I'm not here to judge you or something, but I think when I look at it from the outside looking in, it's like what you put into this. Like if you're cheating reps and you're cheating this workout, what else are you cheating at in life? You know?
Yeah. For something on the grand scheme of things doesn't really mean a lot. And that's the thing. Like it tells you a lot about somebody and what they need, right? External recognition for effort, and like they can't just be intrinsically, you know, proud of what they've done regardless of what the ranking, the score, all that kind of. If it's your best effort, it's really your best effort, and the only person that knows that is you. Doesn't matter what rank it is. It's like, this is the best I got, I gave it the best I got, I can be proud of it, let the chips fall where they fall.
And going back a little bit though, did you say you played D1 hockey?
So equivalent in Canada, yeah. So we don't have like the D1, but I played for the Canadian university team. We would do a university tour each year, and we would play some D1 schools in the US. And we played Michigan State the year they won. They beat us pretty handedly, pretty bad, because they were a good hockey team. But it was cool. Like that's kind of what we did, and we were a good team too. The 4 years I was there, we made national the national tournament 2 of the 4 years.
Okay.
So we were good. We were a good hockey program, and it was a lot of fun. And I was a goalie, so we were all a little different, right? That's what people say. So
how does competing in that universe compares to like what you're doing now when you say you compete in a Masters division? I mean, is it kind of the same rush? Is it just, I don't know, what is it? I mean, is it differences? I mean, you get the same thing out of it? I mean, what's your experiences like with it? This gets my question.
yeah, it's a great question. It's there's performance anxiety you
Sure.
experience no matter what you're doing, right? And when you're an athlete, it's very win-loss. It's very easy to tell, and it's very, you know, immediate in terms of if you're doing well or not. And playing hockey when I was a goalie, it was easy, right? Like if you did well, you won and you didn't let goals in. And when you didn't, goals were going and you end up losing. So a lot of it was, as much as it's a team sport, it was very individual for me. So competing as an individual, competed on both individual and team in CrossFit, you get the same sort of performance anxiety. So it's great to have this mental talk going into something where you have the self-doubt. You're worried, you're scared, you're nervous, you don't want to look stupid, all of these things that come in. And then you just get started. And it's just, the butterflies are there. And it's great at 38 that like I do something, a local comp, and like I'm nervous like the night before, the
Yes.
morning of, like you just like, as much as I hate it in the moment, I reflect back and being like, how cool is this that I'm 38 and like I have performance anxiety for a recreational sport that I'm going to do because I care a lot about how I perform. And I love it. I love testing it and saying like, here it is, you've done the work, now do it and see how it shows up.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to that, regardless of win loss and all that kind of stuff. It's just that moment.
Yeah, it's just like what I just said, like what you put into something is what you'll get out of it. So when you're putting in this type of work, and I'm not sure how you're training right now, but when you are training, you go to do a competition and you get, you see how you kind of stack up against the others and you get that performance anxiety and just knowing that, did you say you're 38 years old?
38. Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, 38 still got it, boys. I'm still out here,
Yeah.
So compete with these young bucks. And I'm 36 and I still think that same way, especially when we have some young, 20 some year olds come into our gym and start working out. And it's like, yeah, I still got it. 36, because
Yeah, man. Let's push back that clock, right? Like Tom Brady and LeBron. Let's keep pushing it back, man.
Because you see those stupid memes and those, when you're watching a professional sports game and they're like, oh, he's 37. He's a Cinderella story coming out here. You can go at any minute. It's like, I still got, what the hell, man? And it's like, I still got it. Right. But that might be a little bit different compared to what, playing like Tom Brady, like a completely professional sport.
Yeah.
But still, it's just, there's that, I guess it's a social norm that when you start to get into your mid 30s, your late 30s, your 40s, that you're supposed to basically slow down and, not do.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You're not supposed to, you're supposed to like slow down and not do as much. And, just basically just say, oh, I'm getting old. I can't do this stuff anymore, but you still can, but you might not be able to do it like you did 10, 15 years ago, but you can still do stuff. And then when you surprise yourself and, hit a PR or something compared to when you were like 25, like, yes, this is why we're doing it here. This is why we're out here, boys. Right.
Yeah. What's the saying is, we don't get old because we stop playing. What is it? I think I just butchered it.
We
don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's true. Like you talked about it before. It's like, when you're getting older, you just have to be smarter about it. It's more about recovery protocol and more about, what you're eating and stuff. When you're younger, you don't have to care about that as much. When you're in your 20s, like, man, you're good. Like you can eat, you can drink pretty much whatever. And like, you're going to be fine. It's not going to impact you. You do that now, like it's going to impact you for a few days. Like you really just gotta, if it's important to you, you just got to make right choices. And like, you can still get better. It's just harder. And it takes more of an effort outside of the hour, 90 minutes, whatever you put into the gym. It's all the other stuff that really kind of moves the needle. So you get older, if you put the time in there, you can definitely still get better.
Yes. And to that point, that's what we're seeing. Like when we see Tom Brady, I think, and LeBron James and these older athletes who are still playing to their mid 30s and they're still arguably top of their game. And just because they are actually doing the work outside of the gym where it's, not meditation, like recovery, as far as like uh more science-based nutrition, I guess. And I can't remember exactly how they eat or what they're doing, but we're seeing just because I think I read a statistic that LeBron puts $1 million in just to his recovery stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what he bases like why he can still play at the level he's playing to today, and that people learning that now is like, oh, this is what extending these careers just because it's hey, outside of the gym, I'm watching what I'm putting in my body. I'm doing meditation. I'm working on yoga. I'm working on just X, Y, and Z, and then hey, I'm continuing on with my life, and just that, and it's just not I only have to go to work out, and go home. There's more to it than that.
Which is great. There's just more information, and like
Yes.
as we get presented with new information and new
Oh.
10 years ago, we don't believe anymore because the information has changed. So of course we're going to change our beliefs because we have new information presented to us and we're going to try some stuff. So like, and it's just really cool the time we're in where it's just like there's so much innovation happening and so many new developments that it's just, if you're open-minded and willing to try new things, it's just like it's really cool. It's a really cool time to be alive, I guess.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself, I mean, pretty open-minded, like just to try new things? And I will get into, your background here. I don't want to make this
Yeah, yeah.
a podcast or whatever if we're already boring listeners, but I mean, but have you always considered yourself, hey, let's try new things? I know like you were in hockey, then you moved over to CrossFit and just trying it out. But I mean, was there anything else that, or you always been just, you had to learn to have a more open mindset, I guess is my question.
I definitely had to learn, and I would credit my wife, my better half, as someone that constantly pushed me to not be so rigid and structured in my thinking and kind of try new things. And like you have someone that you trust that is a guide for you to do this. And like I was resistant to it a while, and you start doing it, and you realize like by going outside your comfort zone that there are growth opportunities to doing that, and like it is uncomfortable, but that's the point, and that's where kind of growth happens. So I did it. I had help, a very patient partner who was probably serving her interests to have me do these things, but it worked. And like now I have a much more open mind. I'm willing to try new things and much more flexible, and I would say it's largely because of her influence for sure. How about yourself? Do you consider yourself, has that always been the case, or is
No,
it recent, or?
no, it's more recent. And what it was that kind of what we were talking about before I started recording was starting to listen into podcasts and just understanding, like actually just hearing conversations, like listening to Joe Rogan and whoever he had on at the time. My first podcast I listened to was him and Kevin Hart. And this was years ago. And I remember why I listened to it, or why I started listening to podcasts too, was because I bought my first pair of AirPods. And I remember I was sitting at work and I was like, I don't want to listen to music. Let's see what podcasts are about. And I remember it's like, oh, well, I knew Kevin Hart is. And I didn't know much about Joe then, except this, that he was a UFC commentator and that he was a comedian. I was like, well, he's ranked number one. Let's see what's going on. He must be good for some reason. But yeah, but to your question, through college and through my early careers coming out of college and adulthood, I felt, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had a, fixed mindset, and just that I was only going off based off what, if you were to tell me your experience about whatever you had, like you ran a marathon, right? And you're like, oh, marathons suck. I was like, well, hey, I hear they suck. And,
Exactly.
and that's how I would go through life, and based off what my professor said or what book, or if I was reading at the time, which I really didn't read much at the time. But so I guess I had a really narrow fixed mindset. And then when I started listening to podcasts and learning about, Jocko Willink and David Goggins and Cameron Hayes and, all these different scientists and all these badass CrossFit people who I've listened to on podcasts too, is like, oh, wait, I don't have to do it this way. There's different ways of doing this shit. It's just that I didn't ever think of it, or like I never really thought about stuff like that, just because I wasn't able to have this, type of conversation to open up my eyes to it, or I just never, looked at something and whatever it is in their shoes. It was always just like kind of my point of view, and just like if I heard it from a family member or a close friend, just based on, well, maybe I shouldn't ride a bike because I'll probably get hurt, so I'm not going to ride any bikes. And that was
Dude,
it.
I was the same. I was exactly
Yeah.
the same. And I think that's the norm because it's easy, right?
Yes.
Like you don't have to do the work. If you hear from, what you think is like an authority figure, a friend, someone, a trusted advisor, it's the truth.
Sure.
You don't need to fact check it. It's just like, it's easy. It's like, great, this is now what I believe because so and so said this. And like, it's cool and it's empowering when you can learn from so many different people, because I'm a believer in that every single person is unique. There is no duplicates. Like how you see the world and how you solve problems is like no other, because nobody's lived your life. Nobody's seen what you've seen. Nobody's experienced what you've experienced. So how you see it, if you tap into authentically how you view something, it's unique. And it's so rare and it's so cool. And now we have these platforms where we get to learn from each other about what they're, as long as they feel comfortable actually telling an authentic story instead of the one that they think everybody wants to hear. But if you're real, then like we can learn from everybody, because nobody's lived my life. Nobody's lived your life. Nobody's lived Kevin Hart's life or Joe Rogan's life. So like you get all of that information. That's just, it's awesome to learn from so many different people.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things I like to say on here is that, back in the day, well, I was going to say back in the day, let's say maybe not 5 years ago, let's say 10, 15 years ago, that if you had certain conversations, let's just say talking about, for example, masculinity, or if you felt like, you were like, I had a guest on here the other day who was kind of not ridiculed, but something to that extent where he felt, like a sissy is what he called himself. And that, he never really spoke up until he just started having these conversations basically. And just saying, hey, it's cool. Like I feel stuff. It's no big deal. And I guess my point is that, talking about like stuff like that, or like mental illness, or I don't know, hot button topics where you can start to have these conversations through podcasts and start to learn and get these thoughts and ideas out, and you share it with the world. Like these conversations are, you don't have to keep more stuff in. You can actually feel like you can talk about it. And it's and like talking about, like, for example, like, I think LeBron James does yoga or hot yoga or something. But, if you were to say that probably back when I was growing up in the 90s or whatever, everyone's just like, you do yoga? That's only for women, right? But now, you can say that comfortably because, there's big time people doing it, and you know it well just because you heard them on a podcast and they were talking about it. And also to your point about authenticity, is that's one thing when I started this podcast too, is that I wanted to be my true form self. Like if you and I were sitting at dinner, I wanted us to be having the same conversation. And like, yeah, there'd probably be a little bit more jokes and stupid sayings or whatever in there. But I wanted to be like, I felt like a lot of people can read bullshit, right? Yeah. And like, if you start saying one thing and then they hear you on another podcast talking about something completely different. So, well, that's not what you said last time. So you're just making this stuff up as you go. Right. So I wanted it to be 100%, of Chris Shelor as much as I could be. Right. And that's what I always like to tell guests too, is like, hey, when you're talking, just be you. That's what people want. They want, and that's what I want. I mean, that's what I think is a form of awesome conversation, is that, you come out and you share your humbling experience. You share your vulnerable abilities. You share your goals in life. You share what you did in life and like, your triumphs you accomplished, because more people relate to that type of stuff where, like if you have like something going on, and sorry about this rant, but if you have something going on inside that, I used to think this too before having these type of long drawn out conversations, that, if I was having a bad day or something, and not really a bad day, but just if I was thinking a thought that maybe I shouldn't be thinking, I guess, that I was like, well, am I wrong for thinking this? Or am I weird for thinking this? And now, am I the only one? And now it's just like, hey, I'm not the only one. So this helps. I can talk about it freely. Sorry.
Well, I think it's because no. Yeah. Like and first of all, like I want to give like, to all of your listeners, like the thing that's cool about this experience with you is like, we literally started talking offline and you're like, man, I'm just going to hit the record button and we're just going to like, there was no questions in advance. There's no topics in advance. We just started chatting. Like we were, and we get like, the rapport is great. It's like, we've been buds for a while, but like, this is yeah, this is raw. This is authentic, which is cool. And to your point, like, it's great that people are feeling confident being vulnerable, because what it allows is for people to relate and not feel like they're alone. To your point, you don't have to live with these things, these feelings. I did a podcast last week where it was about imposter syndrome and talked about, things that not a lot of men talk about like the feelings of feeling insecure and not sure and you're a fraud, and like my own journey with therapy and having, regular meetings with a therapist to explore, my mental health and how I'm processing things and just figuring out how I work. And like, it's just, it's okay and it's normal to explore these things. Whereas like a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about it. So if you're dealing with these things, you feel like it's just you and you're an outlier, where more people talking about it, people can relate and they're not alone, and realize like we're all trying to figure it out. Like nobody knows, nobody has all the answers. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just literally trying to figure it out day by day.
So 100%. And I'm wondering, I kind of feel like I know what you're going to say to this, but talking about, you and I are roughly the same age, but do you think there is more, like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's more mental health issues going on in this country just because of, holding things in and not being able to have certain conversations and not being able to, or even just start the conversation. Not, and I'm not saying like in the form of a podcast, but just being able to come to a close friend, family member, or whatever, and just saying, hey, I feel different today, right? I don't know why. I just feel it. Rather just where they're, back, and I guess where I'm getting that from too is kind of growing up. If I were to say that, I never really got the why are you feeling that way or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
kind of like, hey, let's explore this. Why are you upset? Or, why do you think X, Y, and Z? And so now where it's just like, hey, let's get this going. Let's share this with people, and it's okay. So I guess that's my question. There's a lot of, do you think maybe that's the root or the stem of the problem of some mental health issues, or what?
Definitely. I think there's always like, there's a few factors. My opinion is like whenever there's a disconnect between expectation and reality is usually when things can happen internally and result in mental health. And I think, social media pressure about where you should be in life and the life you should be living and all of these things that are out there, when
Yes.
that's your expectations and it's not met in reality, it causes some feelings and some emotions. And, so that there's a lot of that going on. So I think there are a lot of mental health issues happening because of the digital world we're living in and how everybody's life is on display. It's only the best versions of people's life, and we think that it's day to day. So I think that there's an issue there. The good news is, I think with more people talking about it, we're aware of the issues. Where I think if you rewind the clock, they were still there. We just didn't know about it because nobody was talking about it.
Yes.
So you were burying it and hiding it, and it would probably present itself in other ways, whether it's physical health or, relationship issues or things that way. At least now we can say to friends, we can listen to podcasts and kind of do it ourselves, where it's, I'm not okay. I don't feel great. And
Right.
like, that's a great starting point. Like just acknowledging that, like something feels off, great. And you have a support system that you can kind of unpack that. I think it's encouraging that we're here now. And I think the expectation reality kind of disconnect is kind of how we got here.
Yeah. Going back a little bit, you talked about, I think you just said you were on a podcast about imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really didn't really understand what imposter syndrome was. I going back, like I'd heard about it, but I was kind of like, I don't know, whatever. I don't need to know about that was. And then when you brought up performance anxiety tonight, I said, wait. Cause when I first started learning about imposter syndrome, I was like, well, maybe that's what I have. Cause when I would go out into my first workout of a competition, I was like, shit, they're going to think I'm a fraud. Why am I out here? Uh, I mean, like everything, I'm just thinking about everything that could go wrong. And then, but I finally learned to change that once they said, all right, 10 seconds. Like, all right, let's put your mind at, change that mindset right there. And I think I just picked that up from when I was listening to a podcast with Mike Tyson, where he was talking about how he almost had kind of the same stuff. I don't know if he said performance anxiety or imposter syndrome, but he used to be almost scared to go into the ring or whatever. But once he started walking up to the ring, they played his music stuff. He would just start telling himself that he's a god, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like ready to go. And I was like, well, damn, Mike Tyson was scared. I mean, okay, and that's what I need to do. And so that's when I just learned, like, hey, when that clock hits or whatever, boom, let's change that mindset. Let's get after it. So, but I guess that's my next question for you, though. I mean, like, did you think it was imposter syndrome, or do you deal with that, or was it even with every daily life, your hockey career, or was it just performance anxiety in general?
So I think a mix of both. Like I think, in sport competition, like more performance anxiety because I felt like I was capable And like, it was more so like, can I perform? Like, can I overcome the nerves and actually show who I am? And, so you're just battling with that expectation reality. I expect that because I put in all of this time, I should be performing at this level. And when you get the glimpse or get the feeling that you're not there, then you start panicking, and that's anxiety and kind of just that buildup. I think the imposter syndrome for me is more in a business context where, a lot of the times, kind of doing this, like, you don't know what you're doing, and you feel like
Yes.
if you admit that, and if you tell someone, then they're going to say, aha, I knew it, and everything goes away. And now they take it all away from you, and all of it goes to zero because you didn't know what you're doing all along, but you were tricking people, and now they know. So now you can't do the thing anymore. And like, that just hangs over you in terms of this self-doubt where it's like, all I got to do is not be figured out that I don't know what I'm doing, and I'll be okay. But if somebody finds out, then I'm, screwed. And that's when it goes. And so like, that's the battle of like, trying to present yourself as someone that has your crap together, but like, you don't know all the answers, and you're trying to figure it out. So like, that's the battle internally, I have as an entrepreneur, business owner. And it's kind of like, I think my sports background helps me deal with this a little bit, but it's still like, I think we all deal with it in some capacity. And, if you have some success, you start thinking like, was that a fluke? Like, did I get lucky? Is that, and then when something goes wrong, it's like, see, you shouldn't be doing the thing. This confirms it. This is why you're not doing the thing. So like, a lot of that was going on, and I'm still dealing with that. It's just, it's a challenging thing.
That's one thing that when people, the saying, fake it till you make it. I like it. And I think it works in certain scenarios, I guess, but also that you shouldn't also rely on that as a cool background or thing to do, just because that, yeah, I guess you can. I guess it worked. Like I said, I guess it does work in certain scenarios, but it's okay to say, I don't know to things. You don't know what you don't know. And it's like what you just said, that in my experience, that if I were to say that at work or in a CrossFit gym, like as a coach or just anything in general, that if I said I don't know, then I would feel like I'm a fluke, or, I have
Mm-hmm.
flaws. Yeah. But now, I've learned just through conversations and reading books and podcasts where it's, and like Jocko Willink talks about extreme ownership, and
Love
that,
that book.
yes. And that
Great book.
if you it's okay just to own it, and just say that, hey, I don't know, but I'll figure it out for you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just that way, like you're talking about being authentic and everything, that people know that. And like, I have more respect for that now, that when people tell me they don't know, rather than just starting to make up something about, if you were to ask about like, how is this, do you know anything about this pen? And they just start telling me random stuff. And it's like, there's no way that could be right. Right. Just tell me you don't know anything about this pen. Right. Yeah. And that's one thing and that's another thing that I find that's more really powerful in people, that if, the ability to say no, and also the ability to say, I don't know, but I can figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll find out for you. Yes.
It's funny because there's strength in that, where we assume that it's a weakness to say you don't know, but there's actually a confidence because you feel comfortable saying that you don't know. It doesn't mean that you're never going to know. You just don't know in the moment. And I think like, outcomes in anything are unknown. You can't say with absolute certainty that something's going to happen. Can't. You don't know. You can place a bet and have like a strong, like, you can feel confident on an outcome based on what you know today, but nobody knows the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. We're all just making our best guess on what's going to happen next based on information we have now. So if you don't know something, it's because you're just lacking some information now to make a decision. But nobody knows. That's the thing, is like, nobody knows. We're all making a best guess. Just because something worked one way in the past doesn't mean it's going to work this way in the future.
Yes.
Like, the future is a big unknown. Outcomes are unknown. We're all playing poker and we're all making a bet. And that's it. The cards, we don't know what's coming, but you have a pretty good idea of what you have and the probability of stuff that's going to drop. That's it. We're just placing bets.
Yeah, I want to direct the conversation more into basically why you're here in your background, your entrepreneur and business stuff. But before we start diving into that, you're very enlightening, man. You got a lot of great wisdom. You seem to have, you have well thought out thoughts. When speaking, I mean, is this something also that I wanted to just, have you always been a person who's just reading books, learning from others? I mean, or basing, leadership style and from others? I mean, just learning these life lessons through other people, or I mean, it might be a poor way to ask that, but I mean, like, where did you put all this together? Where's all this coming from? Is it,
So
family members? What?
similar to you, it's like podcast learning, self-help. Like I always like to, like, I think you can learn something from anybody. And I love reading self-help books. I love learning from everybody really, and seeing how it applies to my life and where I can pull that information in. Jocko, we talked about that. I've read that Extreme Ownership. It's a great book, right? Like there's so many. I just read Bob Iger's book, The CEO of Disney, Ride of a Lifetime. Amazing book about like his journey from like, he was the one that kind of did the Pixar acquisition, the Marvel Studios, and the George Lucas, but it's really just like, yeah, his story. And you learn so much about him. And there's just so much knowledge out there that's just available that you could just grab. And I just, I just love it. Like I'm just addicted to learn. I read a book the other day about how to be a stand-up comic, so I could be a better speaker, because they have a framework on how they deliver their stand-up comedy routines. And it's a very rigid framework, but like that was a cool read in terms of how to tell a better story and how to do things that way. So you can learn something from anyone, and it just excites me to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you have that learning mindset. And I've always believe when you stop learning, you stop growing. And I wish I would have found this out back in, 20 years ago during
me too.
right in college and stuff. And I don't know. And I'm happy where I'm at now in life. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a matter of just wait, if I wouldn't have had, like we were talking about that fixed mindset earlier, it's just, if I would have had this different mindset and, where could I be at now? I don't know. Could be worse, could be better. But that to that point though, I mean, kind of growing up in college and stuff, I guess I was kind of fixed on the norm of where if you read books, you were kind of a nerd, right?
Yeah, me too.
Like, that's not cool. You read, like,
Yeah.
go watch something cool. Go watch a cool movie, right? And I used to also think that way with people who kept calendars or a planner or like had a schedule. And I was like, what are you doing? I mean, that sounds like a loser, man. You got a daily planner, write it down, write down what you're going to do today. And I feel bad now that I say that out loud. That I used to think that way, but yeah, I guess this is my point, that if that was one thing, I would like to go back and just say that instead of trying to be the cool kid on the block, just, yeah, man, I read, I learn stuff, man. Here, let me tell you some cool shit. Here, yeah.
But I think, like, to your point, like, you're there now. Yes. And I think, like, we can always think about, like, if we had more, but you're here now. Most people don't get to this point.
That's true.
Right? Like, so you're here at 36. Like think about how much growth and how much more you're going to learn now. Whereas like there are people like, older generations that are in their 60s and 70s that just never, like, were very fixed mindset. It was just because that was the culture. So like we're in a society now where it is more open-minded, where we want to learn from everybody, most people. And, I think it's, if you are one of those that wants to learn, like, right, like it's just a great opportunity to do so. So be grateful that you're here now.
That's correct.
I wish I was there as well before, but I'm happy I'm here now, and we got a long road ahead of us.
Yeah, I gotta go to be a centurion, so I hope it happens. There'll be a lot along the way, but man, I had a good question there for you. Oh yeah, that was my next question. So sometimes, we were talking about a little about performance anxiety, but just I don't know if this is anxiety. You might have a different feeling for it, but when we're talking about learning and reading books and podcasts and just watching documentaries about whatever, or movies, or anything, just do you ever feel that it's almost information overload into your brain?
Sometimes. And yes, I think like, it can be too much. And I think you got to be in the right headspace to do that. Sometimes, man, you need the reality TV where you can just kind of shut your mind off and just give it that. Like if you force it, then it's too much, right? Like it's like anything else, right? It's moderation, right? Like exercise, everything is just like, you have to do it in moderation. If you go to the extreme, then I think that's unhealthy as well. So if you're just consuming 24 hours a day or 20 hours a day constantly, like you're eventually going to burn out and you're not going to enjoy the process. So like, I'm really easy on myself, and there's sometimes I get in a rhythm and like I'm crushing books. And there's sometimes where it's like, you know what? I'm binge watching some stuff on Netflix and I'm good with it. Like I'm fine. So just knowing that like it's gonna come and go. And are you kind of the same, or are you like, where are you at in terms of how you manage that?
Yeah, I get very. I've started to manage it, but I get to where, if I get pulled away from work and I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook, and if I don't get to finish it, it's like, oh, I'm going to miss something. I want to learn it right now, and I get a little pissed off about it. Just that, man, I don't want to go help these people out. I got to go back and finish this podcast, and or if it's not something that I can help out people while I have an AirPod in while I'm doing whatever to fix their problems. It's just that, yes, but then into that, and I get agitated with that really bad. And so, but then, at the end of the week, Friday night, Saturday night, it's just that because I do that all week, like literally while I'm at work, I'm by myself mostly at work. So it's either podcasts or audiobooks or in my
Right.
headphones with some music here and there, but it's rare now just because I'm so fixated on this. What are they talking about? There's podcasts out there. There's a new podcast. I feel Neil deGrasse Tyson. What's he talking about? Let me. So, but yeah. So at the end of the week, though, I've learned, and this is how I've managed it. Friday night, Saturday night. Hey, this is your just chill nights. Hey, if you got a good show on, like, it's not, I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but I like Yellowstone right now. But hey, man, just watch it, go get you a drink, some, I like gummy candies too while I eat it, and just chill. And that's my thing. And it's like, and when I do that, it's like, okay, you don't have to be, always on the keep your brain going all the time. It's like, shut it down. And I love really stupid, raunchy comedies sometimes. And and it's just like, you don't have to think, and you can just get a stupid laugh out of like, somebody falling out of a car, I guess, or whatever. It's just, okay, that's good. And that's how I kind of keep my balance though. So yeah, it's just
I like that. I think it's smart, like to have those breaks, right? And that cadence to be able to balance it a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. And just, and if I do go out on Friday and Saturday night, and that, we start to have, we don't never talk about hot topic, or we do sometimes, but never, but we start to have these conversations. It's like, okay, I'm getting my feel right here. I'm learning about whatever through your point of shoes or your eyes, and that, okay, yeah, it's cool now. And then, and even if we don't agree on the same thing, we can still sit and just talk and have this cool conversation. And at the end of the day, we're still friends, whatever. So and that helps too. It's just that, okay, I'm actually just out and about having a couple drinks, and boom, I'm still getting my fix on there too by learning and just engaging with people where, and previously I would never really, I would be too nervous to talk about my opinions on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the best conversation you have is when you disagree on something, right? And you're not overly emotional about it. I don't know if you read anything by Adam Grant, but he has a book that's called Think Again. It's all about kind of new information being presented, how, we should always be changing our beliefs based on new information. And he has this exercise where if you're speaking to somebody and you disagree and it seems like it's not going anywhere, there's one question you can ask somebody to see if it's going to be a productive conversation or not. And the question is, what information would you need to see that would change your perspective? And if the answer is nothing, then you're never going to get to a point where you can have a productive conversation, because they're emotionally charged up and they're not thinking about it. But like all of us, whatever you think, there's some information that if it was presented, you would change the way you think about that.
Of course.
So it's just an interesting way to have a conversation with someone, being like, hey, listen, I think believe this. I believe keto. You believe fasting. What information would you need to see that would make you think that maybe fasting is not great?
Yes.
Right. Like, and then you'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Well, I guess if there was this information, it probably wouldn't be. Like, oh, that's cool. And then I'll give you mine. And we kind of like, you kind of move off your point. You still have the belief there, but it just moves the conversation in a more productive way.
Yeah, that's some great points, Michael. Like that, I wrote that book down too. So put that on my list. But and I love that just because, being, and kind of going back to the CrossFit topic again, though, but and being a coach too, I'm asked sometimes about nutrition and, what works and what doesn't work. And I'm assuming, to my point, before I get too far ahead, I'm assuming, do you know who Lane Norton is?
No.
So he's a guy that he's bio Lane on Instagram. It's his handle, but he's just done. He's a big nutrition guy. He was a power lifter at one point, like I think they had some kind of Olympic powerlifting thing. But anyway,
Okay.
but he's a good follow, especially if you're all about, if you're into the nutrition game.
Definitely.
But he's one of these guys who loves going down to studies and just picking apart the studies and just saying, hey, this is the information that's being presented. This is what they did, and this is what they didn't do also. And so, and it's kind of like, when you start talking about, because diet is a very nutrition and diet, like I don't envy people who are in those fields, just because it's a very, depending on who you're talking to, a very dogma approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like these conversations that just because, one person might, like you were just talking about, might believe keto to the, like, die on that hill of keto. And it's just like, what are we doing here? And I'm not negating keto by any means, but it's just like, did you look at this other studies, and I'm not, and I recently just read Sacred Cow, and they were talking about the importance of meat, where, anti-meat eaters were just like, no, don't eat meat. And I had a guy on here talking about, like, I forgot what he does, but he was just talking about how he doesn't eat meat and how much it was really bad for you. And the whole time, and I didn't want to give him a lot of pushback. I gave him a little bit, but I wanted to present some of this information in front of him, and like, hey man, what do you think about this? This is different, right? This is not kind of going along with your points. But no, I do agree though, what you said about his point, that if you were to ask what information would change this and they say nothing, then it's like, all right, then I don't, this is just wasting time. I'm just wasting money. But it's stuff like that. Like, I would like to know, like, hey, if I'm thinking wrong, if I'm thinking differently, well, show me, man. What do you know that I don't know? And that's what's cool. Like that, and that's cool. And it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But just because I didn't know, well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I don't know. So hit me with some knowledge. Like, I don't mind. I don't mind being schooled. Take me to school.
It's a science experiment, right? Like, it's just it's different things. So like, cool. Let's test some stuff. Test some different hypotheses and see what works. Like,
yes.
We don't know, and like what we believed was truth 10 years ago is we've debunked, and now it's changed. So like, if you're still believing things that you believed 10 years ago, then like, what information are you ignoring and not evolving your own thought process? Like, there are some things that are foundational beliefs that obviously those are going to remain, foundational to you, but everything else, how I think about diet, exercise, sleep, business, all those have changed drastically because information's changing. There's more stuff coming out. There's innovation. There's new studies. There's new ways of doing things that you should constantly be testing and doing things differently. Why wouldn't you?
Yes. Why not? It doesn't hurt anything to try something for, a month or whatever, or even, I mean, I don't want to say, depending on what it is, I guess. If you were to tell me you want to lose some weight and you try to diet and you're like, well, I did it for a week. It's, we didn't really, I mean, come on. You did, you said, I did it for a week. It didn't work. Well, it's like, come on, man. You gotta do something more than that. I mean, 30 days, at least do that. And then tell me what happens. But anyway, but I want to, I know we're getting a little short on time here, but we've been talking a lot, man. And like you just said earlier, we've just been vibing. I'm loving it. But, before we start going down another road, I mean, so I guess to give more people about your background, though, you basically help employee recruitment. Is that a good way to put it? Or
like hire, like what I'll say right now is like I've been in the recruitment space for 15 years, and like, hiring's boring, man. Like, job descriptions suck, resumes suck. I'm changing all of that, because the thing is like, kind of aligned with what we're talking about now, is the job description and the resume don't even come close to telling the story of the people behind them. Like, the best jobs everybody has is because of their boss and the people they work with. So when you have a bad job, you're not leaving the job, you're leaving the people. More often than not, you're leaving your boss. Your boss sucks, sure. You're leaving. So if you're looking for a new job, the biggest influencer of how that experience is going to be is the boss. So where are they? Like, what are they like when you're applying for a job? Like, why is there no information on who they are, even what they're like, to see if it's worth something you want to explore? And that's what we do. So we do video job descriptions, where rather than like reading about something, you get to watch it. You get to hear your boss tell you about the job. This is who I am. This is my background. This is what I've been doing. It's kind of like a podcast. This is my background. This is what I've been doing. Here's who I am. Here's what my team does. And here's what we're looking for. Love to chat with you. And on the flip side, candidates get to video apply, where they get to speak to the things that the hiring manager wants to hear. So you don't have to guess. There's no, posturing in terms of like, I think they want to hear this, so here's how I'm going to write my resume. Or, I don't know who I'm speaking to, so I'm going to posture myself to be this way because this is the professional version that everybody wants to hear. It's like, no, man, that's not life. There's your professional persona, and then there's you. And what we're doing is like, it's the same person. So like, why are we trying to be this version professionally when just be yourself? And that is like, that should be how we recruit and attract talent. So that's what we're doing, is bringing authenticity and human element back into the hiring process.
Love that, Mike. And I had so many thoughts as you were talking. I hope I don't, because I'm loving this new idea of it, the video form of podcast, or the video form of hiring. And just because I recently started a new job a couple months ago, and just, I went through the whole process of just fill out the application. Here's my resume, and going through, I guess, old school techniques of what I learned in college. Is like, hey, write your resume to fit whatever job you're applying for, and write your cover letter to apply, just to these things. And it's like you said, like, I don't know who's getting this. I don't know that unless it's all about who is what some people say. But I didn't know anybody here, so I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I don't know who's going to read this. I don't know who's seen this at all. And luckily, when you get if and when you get the interview, that if you do get the chance to meet the boss, you can ask questions there if you feel good about it. But that's not always the case. I mean, but I've learned now to kind of ask about like what the workplace culture is like, and why did the other person leave and stuff like that. But and looking at it on the other end of that, and being the hiring manager, I've been in that position too in one of my universities, and just that, everything looks good on paper, but when they come in for the interview, it's like, what the heck happened here?
Yeah. Yeah. Think about how much time as a candidate, think about how much time you have to invest before you meet who your future boss would be. Yes. From seeing the job description, reading it, writing your resume, writing your cover letter, applying, probably doing some sort of online application to go through this. Then you do a screen with the recruiter. You've invested probably a few hours, and then you meet them and your future boss, and you're like, nope, not for me. We do that in 2 minutes. The video job description is a 2-minute trailer. It's like a movie trailer. So like, before you even decide if you want to invest any time, you get an idea of who your boss is going to be. And it's either I'm in and now I'm willing to invest in time, or no, I wouldn't vibe with this person because of these reasons. Great. You vet yourself in or out. Yeah. And from the hiring manager perspective, job descriptions are the only form of marketing collateral that exists to market a job. Think about that for a second. If companies claim that people are their biggest asset, think about how much money and resources they dedicate to attracting customers through marketing efforts, and what they do to attract talent. We have a job description. That's it. That's where it stops.
I agree.
When you attract customers, think about the multi-level marketing campaign, how good we've got at analytics, understanding where the customers are, hitting them with the right message at the right time on multiple platforms so that they fall in love and have an emotional connection with your product or service to move them there. That is how we've sophisticated the buying process on attracting customers. If people are your biggest asset, why are we still using a paper resume that lists 15 skills and experiences you need to even have a conversation? That's the imbalance that I'm looking at fixing. If we could attract talent the same way you attract customers, man, you'd get some great talent.
Yes. I mean, where did this idea just come from you? Where did this idea come from you to do this? I mean, just from personal experiences and looking for jobs, or what?
Yeah. So I've been always on the recruitment agency side for 15 years since I've been out of school.
Yes.
And when COVID hit, there was a massive shift in market dynamics, and the candidates had more power, and still do, than they've ever had in this process. And employers didn't know what to do with the vulnerable position they were in. There were more jobs than there were people to fill them. So you had candidates that were getting 7, 8, 9 offers at the same time, and they could work for anybody, anywhere, because it was a remote workforce. So you weren't limited to small pool anymore. You were limited to work for anybody. So like competition opened up, and companies struggled still. Some of them do to this day, because when you post a job online, nobody's applying to those anymore because they have options. There's a lot more out there. So they don't know how to market that experience. And that's the opportunity that we saw and we're seizing.
Do you see, because this is, I've never heard of this before, of people, or actually even had the thought of actually changing the form of job descriptions or candidates into the video format. I mean, do you see a lot of people jumping on board to this? Or they're like, or more people just like, people who are hired managers are saying, well, I don't want to film myself on camera and talk. Or are they camera shy? I mean, I guess what's the cons to this that you're seeing is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So there is somewhere, and the popular ones we get is like, well, I'm not super extroverted or outgoing on camera. And what I say is like, great. We talked about authenticity earlier in this podcast. That's what we're going for. Yes. If you try to be something and you're not, you're going to attract people that are attracted to the fake version of you, which defeats the entire purpose we're doing. You're not extroverted. Don't be yourself. Of course. If you're shy, nervous, be nervous, own it. That's you. Like, it's being authentic. So like all we're doing is creating that moment of the most effective recruiting technique you can ever have, which is the personal referral, right? Yes. You're working somewhere, your boss is hiring, and you're saying, I've got a friend that I think would be great for this. You call up your friend and say, hey, listen, got this opportunity with so-and-so. I think you guys would be great. I think you'd hit off. That is the best recruiting method ever. All we're doing is scaling that and creating those moments for people to see each other for who they are, and allow for that match to happen. So the feedback has been overwhelming. We've been it's just over a year now that we've been in kind of pilot phase, and it's been massive. So this year is the year of scale for us. We just hired a creative director to come in on Spark Studios that's doing all of our content, which essentially is the better job description and the resume. And we have clients that have jumped on board with us in this year say to us, same sort of thing as you, is like, why is nobody else doing this? And there's no way I could hire any other way after doing this.
Yes.
It's way more efficient. It's actually saves time. Like, they think it's like, well, I gotta do this video. It's like, you do this video, you save 2 rounds of interviews.
Of course. Yeah. How much time does that save right there?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and just that it's hit me a couple times that, when people send inquiries about, wanting to be on the podcast or whatever, actually, going through a little press sheet or whatever. But I've had a few people actually send me a video and actually explaining to me why they want to be on the podcast. And it was like an actual, formal video that was directed towards me. And I remember just like this, I don't mind watching the video, but I read the press sheet. I was like, I don't want to read this. It's just lame. I don't. They're all the same thing, right? Here's your picture. This is what you've done. Cool. But when I've watched the videos and they're like, "Hey, Chris," I'm like, "Well, wait, they got my attention. What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then I get a feel for exactly what you were just saying. How they are. How are they in front of the camera? What are they talking about? How well are they speaking? How well are they not speaking? What are they? Are they real fidgety? Are they moving their hands a lot? And just doing that, I was like, in 2 minutes, I was like, done. Cool. Do I want them on here? Let's see what happens. And that was and I never thought about it in that perspective. Like, hey, why are not people using this to hire candidates?
Well, think about how we're consuming content. It's all video.
Yes.
TikTok, it's Instagram, it's real. Everything is video. So like, why is it we spend most of our time at work, but we're still using like these weird documents that nobody's reading anyway? Like, we all skim through. Like, there's just a better way of getting that information out there that people actually want to consume, right? So That's the insight, is like, we're still like, recruiters are still using coupons to try to get customers, and like, marketing has evolved way beyond that, but we're still mailing out the coupons to try to get people to come into the store. It's like, that's just not how things happen anymore. Like, that process has just been it's ripe for transformation. It's been the same way for probably 100 years, and hasn't changed.
Is that just because people don't like change? So there's like, we're going to keep doing it this way. Hey, this will cost more work. Now I got to film a video. Why don't we just keep doing what we're doing and say, screw it? Who cares? But
yeah, and I think it's so ingrained, like in bigger companies too, because it's just like we talk about fixed mind. It's like, well, we always just do it this way.
yes, I
It's just
hate
the way
that.
we do
I
it.
hate that.
Yeah, it's
Tell me
like
that.
so,
Ah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. Like this is just how we do it. And I was like, yeah, but you don't have to. There's a better way, right? Like you don't have to do it this way anymore. Just because you did do it this way doesn't mean you can't do it a different way. So, but I think there's just a lot of that, and unfortunately, in corporate land, it's just like there's not a lot of people questioning like why do we do it this way? Like there is a better way to do it. And I think now with video being more available, like that's how we do business now. Most of it is virtual, so people are more comfortable being on film. They're more likely to adopt the platform that and the system that we're proposing. So it is getting a lot more, people are more comfortable in front of camera now, so it makes it a lot easier.
I'm wondering if, yeah, because that was one of my biggest things, even starting with this podcast, that I was so nervous about being in front of a camera, even though that it was just talking to one of my friends and I knew somebody was recording me. It's like, shit, well, what am I doing? Like, I don't do something weird. What am I doing? But I'm wondering, and I was also thinking about this. Hopefully, this might be a good question. So, when I was working in university, when we were going through these hiring committees, I guess is what we were. And we would get a stack of resumes and cover letters, and we would have, and per human resources, and I don't know how every university operates, but the one I was at, they had, each candidate had to fit into a certain matrix, right? Do they have the required years? Do they have the required education? Okay, if they have that, then they move to the next level. If they didn't, just throw them in the trash or whatever. But is there a way to, if this starts, if a company was hiring for a typical position and they got 100 videos in, I mean, is there a way to, like, would somebody filter these out, or does somebody just have to go through each video and watch each 2-minute thing just to get a feel for each person? What do you think?
So what I would do in the instance in big hiring events where you're going to get thousands of applicants, I wouldn't have them all do videos. I would have a screen to get them down first before you employed the video application piece. So yeah, so it's not, because the other thing you want is you want it to be a good experience for the candidates that don't get selected, because there's nothing worse than applying for a job and never hearing. Right? Like that's just a bad experience. It's like, well, I put in the time, I wrote this cover letter, I did all this work, and you didn't even tell me what's going on. So like, I'm a big believer in like, they're people, right? Like everybody is a person, and they deserve, if they're going to put in time something, they deserve the time back to be reviewed and give some feedback, whether that's automated through a tool, however you want to do it. But like, if somebody's taking the time to want to work for your company, then you should treat them like they eventually are going to be an employee. Maybe now it's not the right time, but they eventually are going to work from you. How would you treat them?
Yes.
Right? Like, and that's how we should be treating everybody. And good companies do that, follow that practice. Some are very transactional in the moment. It's like, oh, you're not fit for this job, next. It's like, yeah, but what about in a year when you have a different job and that person that you just totally ignored is now a great fit for that? So thinking about every person that applies eventually is going to work for you, and treat them that way.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's just, man, you said that really well, Mike. I mean, we're people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have emotions, we have feelings. And I remember, and that was one of my biggest stresses in life. I remember coming out of college, I had no clue what I was going to do. I was just applying for jobs just because I needed a job. I was so afraid of being a loser. When I graduated from college, like, all my friends were moving to bigger cities, starting their lives and their careers and getting married. And I was back home living with mom and pop. And I'm like, well, what the hell, man? And so I was just applying just to apply, and I remember so many, and granted, that I was applying, just, I didn't really care where I was applying. I just knew I needed a job. But I just remember some of the jobs I was really, really wanting, and took the time to write those cover letters and make sure cross the T's and dot the I's, and everything was perfect. And then just not to even hear a thanks, but no thanks, it was just like so demeaning. I just remember just like, man, just like exactly what you just said. Like, they couldn't even just send like a letter just saying, hey, thanks for applying, but we went to a different direction.
Yeah.
It was like,
The thing is what, like, I realized I've been doing this so long, and I preach to my clients, is the hiring process is vulnerable, right? Like, candidates, they're putting themselves in a vulnerable position. Like the term, like it's not personal, it's business is bullshit, right? Like, of course it's personal, right? Because it's people, right? Like we're people, we can get past that we have emotions that even in a professional standpoint, like you're bringing those emotions and you're bringing who you are to that. So like the hiring process is a vulnerable one. You're putting yourself out there and there's a likelihood that you're going to get rejected and somebody's going to tell you like, you're not good enough.
Yes.
Right? Like that sucks and that hurts.
It does.
So like the thing is like respecting the vulnerable nature that people put them in and doing the best you can. And it doesn't take much. It's just giving them information, letting them know what's going on, right? And giving them feedback. So like that's something that we like, that's why we call it humanizing hiring, is because it's just people. Like all we're trying to do is respect the fact that people have emotions. The hiring process is vulnerable for both hiring manager through our system because they're putting themselves out there. They're not hiding behind the company anymore. They're saying, I'm Mike and I want you to work for me. And if you don't want to, you don't like me. So we're putting the hiring manager in a vulnerable position, just like the candidates are.
Nice.
So that's the thing, is now both people are vulnerable and you get to see break down those barriers and have a real meaningful, authentic conversation. So humanizing that experience is really important.
Man, I like that. I like that, Mike. Humanizing that experience.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'm glad you're putting so much thought and stuff into this hiring process. And just because, and I don't really know. Well, I mean, I know I just like I just told you, I got a new job a couple months ago, but I really don't know what the job market is like right now. But I remember just like what I told you though, when I graduated college, it was just so demeaning, just so like I don't even know why I'm trying anymore. I thought I've done everything correctly. I went to school. I have degrees. I'm not an idiot. I haven't done anything stupid not to get hired. So why am I not getting hired? And why is it? Is my resume wrong? I mean, what is it? And then if I were to get the interview too, and then leave and just and never hear that thanks but no thanks too. It's like, well, what did I do wrong in the interview? Did I do something weird? What was wrong? Was my hair not right? Whatever. And yeah, so it's just.
And I'll tell you something right now that'll help you, is like my belief, and I've been doing this a long time, so tell you what you want. There's no bad candidates. It's just not the right time. Right? Like I believe most candidates can do any job within reason. We can't be doctors without going to med school.
I agree.
Right? I can do any job because it's skill-based, right? So if you don't get the job, it has nothing to do with you as an individual. It's not the right time for you. That's it. It's not personal. Like it shouldn't be a personal attack. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the skill set you have for the problem that is right in front of them in this moment. And it's not a good match. There's no bad candidates. There's bad fits, which is very different.
Point.
Right? So it's not about that. Just like there's no perfect candidates, it's the perfect fit. The right candidate with the right skills at the right time. When you don't get the job, it's just the wrong time. It doesn't mean you're a bad candidate or you're inadequate. So I always like to tell people that if you're struggling and you're applying for jobs, it's not you. It's the wrong time for what you're applying for. Everybody is unique. We kicked it off by saying that. Everybody's unique because everybody has a different story and different life. Nobody has seen the life through your eyes or my eyes. So what I bring to a job is going to be very different than anyone else, even if we're doing the same position. So if you can tap into the uniqueness of who you are, you will have no competition in the labor market because there's nobody like you.
Yeah, I was thinking in other perspectives too, just how much interviews and not really recruitment, but just interviews played in my life, and just even going to college and even doing my graduate school interview and just being I was a nervous. I guess I was a nervous right there, and even the people call me by my wrong name at the end of the interview, and I just remember just felt the air just came right out of me. But now that I'm just wondering, like you could apply these type of stuff or type of things into that settings right there, not only just job related, but just going for a graduate interview and just saying, hey, let me make a video of why I should go to X university. It was West Virginia University, by the way, and I'm still to remember that for the rest of my life. And I remember that. I mean, just a quick side story that I went up there and I'd already passed the first process of, the sending all your test scores, your resume, and I think that's the resume, your application and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm in. They're inviting me up. I'm in. Second interview, no big deal. And I remember going through the process. They brought me into the room and yeah, went through the whole interview process, and just right at the end of it, like I guess he was the dean or whatever he was, but he was already looking at the guy who was in next, and he said, "Well, I think he called me John or something like that." He said, "Well, thanks, John. Thanks for being here." And I remember just sitting there and just like I did
Mm.
nothing because I was like, "Well, I can't call this guy out. What do I do?" And then luckily, another professor, and she spoke up. She's like, "His name is Chris," and I remember he just like kind of dropped his pen, and he felt so embarrassed. He's like, "Oh shit, what did I just do?" And he ended up walking me out and was like, "Hey man, yeah, thanks." And we'll see what happens, And I was like, "Hey, I already know I got it. I already know I didn't get it. Obviously, why don't you
Yeah.
tell me that?" And but now that just being able to like actually make a good video and send that in, I would have now like into your perspective and everything. Just wow, that would have made me felt so much better than what they did to me that day. I just remember driving home and just being like,
It's crappy, man. It's a
yes,
crappy feeling.
like screws college. I don't need
Yeah.
it. So, but anyway, but Mike, appreciate you being here. I kept you longer than I probably should.
This was a great conversation, man. I had a lot of fun. I had no idea where we were going to go. We talked about everything. This is very Rogan-esque.
Good. I'm a shoot from the hip kind of guy, and that's what I like, just to see where things go, is to start talking and build some good camaraderie, some good friendships, and great minds think alike. I mean, you're one badass dude, Mike. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, and likewise. This has been a lot of fun.
But real quick though, if you want to plug all your stuff, or if you want people to find you, or just anything you want to do in general, just feel free to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Mike Thomson. The company Spark Recruiting, sparkrecruiting.ca is the website, but I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So slide into my DMs, drop me a note. I love connecting with people. I love hearing about people's stories. So please do connect with me.
Cool. Well, any last words, last messages you think people should hear from you, or you good?
I'll leave you with this, because I like to, we talk a lot about the hiring process and things, and, it's frustrating. It's all this stuff. It should be fun. You're trying to explore a relationship. It's dating. It's fun, right? Like, you're assessing out people. And I know that sometimes people don't have that luxury because they need a job and they're operating from a stressful position, but take your time, because there's nothing worse than getting a bad job. So take your time. You're in the driver's seat. Candidates have more control than they've ever had in the hiring process. So enjoy the power position that you find yourself in. And if you don't think you're in a power position, connect with me and I'll remind you that you are.
Mike, that's an excellent way to take this home right there on that note. So, cool. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for being here, man. Thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks a lot, man.
We're out of here, folks. See you.